Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle report. This one has the Bretonnians facing the Empire in a 2250 point battle line scenario. And this is going to be my first time playing the Empire now that I've taken them over. I do want to apologize ahead of time. About halfway through this battle, my phone went wonky and started adding black bars to all the pictures. So I figured out what it is now and I've fixed it, but that's just how the pictures turned up. So sorry about that in advance, and let's go ahead and get into the narrative. General Cartagia, as he still thought of himself, looked behind him as he and his knights fled from the Empire camp. He knew that in escaping from the Archlector Heinrich von Grunberg, he was sacrificing his lands and titles, but he did not care. He knew that he was the only hope for his beloved wife and her daughter, and the Archlector be damned if he wanted to get in the way of that. Luckily, his knights were still loyal to him, and willing to throw away their homes as well in disobeying the Archlector. He felt a surge of pride as he looked at the men with him. He had trained most of them himself, and that time and attention had now paid for itself in full. After several hours of running, the mounted figures came to a stop. The master of the knights, Sir Wilhelm, turned to Cartagia. "General, I believe we have gone beyond the camp's outer scouts. Where do we head from here?" Cartagia looked to the west. "We head to the Bretonnian camps of Lord Serpine. From all I have heard, he is a just man, and the only force that may offer us sanctuary from von Grunberg." Several days had passed, and the Empire camp was abuzz with activity. Not only was Heinrich von Grunberg preparing his forces to march on the Snowmane tribe, but he had also made the recovery of Cartagia a priority. The Archlector was drilling the swordsman from Altdorf when he was interrupted by the captain of his regiment of scouts. "Archlector, our scouts have located Cartagia." "Where is he, Captain?" "He has traveled to the Bretonnian camp of House Serpine, and has requested sanctuary from Lord Alphonius. Rumor says that Lord Alphonius has granted it to him, and taken him in as a military advisor." Heinrich's eyes narrowed. "Muster the men, Captain. Cartagia has added treason to his crime of desertion. I will go to the Bretonnian camp personally and demand them to surrender the former general." "What if they'll not surrender him?" "Cartagia has violated the will of Sigmar, and the laws of our rightful emperor. No one will prevent me from bringing him to justice. Certainly not Lord Serpine and his honorless rabble." So, needless to say, Lord Serpine did not give up General Cartagia, and in fact forced the issue into battle, in which Cartagia has been given a unit of Bretonnians to defend himself. This is the board we're looking at. Really, the only thing to take note is that building in the center is a Grail Chapel, so all of the Bretonnians are going to be stubborn within 6 inches of it. And if you look, we actually rolled more mysterious forests than I ever have seen. I think we had a total of 5 on the board. 4 or 5 maybe. But we were sitting here thinking this would be the perfect board for the new Wood Elves to come out. Not so much great for Bretonnian Empire, however, so we ended up kind of sticking to this middle here and trying to avoid most of them. So we'll get started with the Bretonnian deployment. In the back there, you obviously see his 2 trebuchets. Up front on the left is a unit of 5 mounted yeomen. Next to that is a long bus of 13 knights errant. They have the errantry banner on them. And in that group is a prophetess of the lady with the silver mirror, who is a level 4 to Lore of Heavens. Next to that is a big old unit of 43 men-at-arms with a damsel of the lady in there who is a level 2 to the Lore of Life, and she has the prayer icon, which he activates immediately at the start of the game to give them the blessing of the lady. Then we have a lance of 13 Knights of the Realm. In that is his Paladin Battle Standard Bearer with the Shrieking Blade, the Enchanted Shield, and the Dawnstone. There's also a Damsel of the Lady who's a level 2 Lore of Beasts, and she has a Dispel Scroll. The Knights also have the Banner of Chalon, which means that I can't stand and shoot against them. Next to that is a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights with full command. And at the far end, we have General, or now as the Bretonnians refer to him, Lord Cartagia, who is on a Pegasus, Royal Pegasus. He has the Sword of Strife, the Dragon Helm, the Luckstone, and the Virtue of Heroism. So he is Heroic Killing Blow, so that's kind of scary. And here's the Empire deployment, and if you've been paying attention, you've seen this list before. It's the same one I used against the Dwarves in the last battle report that was not a narrative. So here we have a unit of 10 handgunners. Behind them to the left is an Imperial Great Cannon, and the other 2 units there are detachments, which I'll show here in a second. So here in the center is my large unit of 30 halberdiers. The red and white unit that was in the last page is one of its detachments, 15 spearmen. The red and blue unit here is the other detachment of 15 swordsmen. In front of that is a unit of 10 archers, and the 2 halfling units on either side of that are detachments of 5 halflings, or 5 archers each. And with the archer unit is Magister Conrad Braun, who is my level 4 Lore of Life. He has a Dispel Scroll and the Talisman of Protection. In the Halberdier unit, I have Heinrich von Grunberg, the Archlector, and my general. He has the Armor of Meteoric Iron, Dawnstone, and an extra hand weapon. And Captain Derek Hostberg, who is my Battle Standard Bearer. He has the Dragon Helm, Talisman of Endurance, and the Iron Curse icon, which, sad to say, I forget about almost the entire game, and the fact that I forgot about it makes me cry. Also with them is Fritz Weishoff, Felix Weishoff, who is my level 2 Battle Wizard to the Lore of Light, and he has Van Horseman's Speculum on him. And behind the Halberdier unit, you can see the Altar of Mor, which I use as my Celestial Hurricanum. And on the far edge, you see my Hellstorm rocket battery. And in front of that is my steam tank. And last but not least is my unit of 3 Demigryph Knights with Musician and Standard. And they have the Steel Standard on them, not like it comes into great effect. The forest that they're in ended up being a blood forest, but nobody set it off the whole game, so pretty immaterial there. And here just shows where the mounted yeomen vanguarded up to try and gain control of this middle open area we're going to be fighting over. And here is where the Pegasus Knights vanguard to, hiding behind the Grail Chapel. And here is where the Lord Cartagia on the Pegasus vanguarded up to. And now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, I don't remember if the Paladin on a Pegasus actually gets Vanguard, but I'm sure somebody will correct me if they don't, because that's what you guys are awesome at, telling me when I'm wrong. So, obviously, with the Bretonnians choosing to pray, I get to go first. And I wanted to go ahead and move, not march, the Demigryphs out of the building here so that they had line of sight on the Pegasi, so that he's got to move them. I'm kind of making him come to me to engage things on my side. And of course, I spend 3 steam points on the steam tank and run it right up. I misfired this turn, which was a bad omen. But I got the really easy miscast where I just couldn't use the steam gun. But since I was going to burn all my points on movement, it was no big whoop. And just like the last game I played, I knew I wanted to get my bunker with the mage out of the way, so they go back through that hole and go behind the swordsman. And I sent the 2 archer units up so that they could take out the fast cab. Because I'm going to have a hard enough time dealing with picking my fights in such a small area. I really don't need his fast cab in there causing problems, so I was hoping between 10 shots I could deal with the fast cab. And this just shows where the other archers marched so that they could be behind the lines and nice and safe. And my level 4 is back there, so that gives me still prime buffing range, so I'm not. So then I try to get, during my magic phase, I get Throne of Vines off. He doesn't stop that because he wants to see what comes next. And I try to get Speed of Light off on my Halberdiers because I figure they're within a long bomb range for a charge by the knights, but this player likes making those, so I wanted to be buffed up in case he hit me. And I miscast, did a wound to Felix, and 4 dead Halberdiers. Then going on into shooting, I end up between the 2 archer detachments, end up doing 2 wounds to the fast cav, and despite being within range to borrow the knight errant's leadership, they end up breaking, but they don't flee very far. The main benefit is if they don't rally, they'll probably run right through that trebuchet and off the board. I then end up shooting the cannon at the trebuchet, hitting it, and rolling a 1 to wound. So, no such luck there. But I did hit the Hellstorm rocket battery and got 3 missiles, and 2 out of the 3 missiles landed in the peasants, and I killed like almost 3 ranks of them. So that was pretty awesome. So we go into Bretonnia's turn, and he declares a charge against my, I think it's against the swordsman unit on this side, and ended up failing it by an inch. He rolled absolute garbage and ended up just on this side of the building. So now all I have to do is spend 1 point with the steam tank, and he's going to slam into the side of them and just ruin those Pegasi's day. However, much more effectively, he took his Knight of the Realm unit with his BSB and slammed it right into the face of the Demigryphs. So I'm very worried about this. Those knights are very hard to deal with, and I know Demigryphs are supposed to be super sticky, but I haven't played with them yet, so I'm not really sure of what they're capable of doing. So I was kind of nervous here. And then to add insult to injury, into the side comes General Cartasia with his heroic killing blow, craziness, and 6 attacks, something stupid like that. So now I'm real nervous. My only real hope here is that he doesn't kill me, and he breaks me so that I can run, and he has to send the knights after me into that dangerous terrain, because this player is terrible about failing dangerous terrain tests. And I know I've got the next 2 pictures out of order here, but this just shows where he moved up his knights and his peasants. Mainly I'm thinking is he didn't want to try the long bomb, so he's bringing up the knights slowly to match the peasants, because now he's in a pretty easy charge into the front of my units, and bringing up the peasants so they can handle the redirectors I've got. So we'll see if that ends up working. And this is the part I had out of order. He failed to rally with the horsemen. They ran, fled through the trebuchet and off the board, and then the trebuchet failed its panic check and couldn't shoot for this turn. So I felt pretty accomplished that it lost turn 1 shooting of the trebuchet. So that made me very, very pleased, because I'm afraid of Bretonian trebuchets. I really am. And I think this is just another... Oh, no, okay, so this is after combat, I guess. The Bretonnian Lord killing blowed a single one of the Demigryphs, and armor save kept me alive the rest of the way, so I think he did 1 more wound to one of the ones that are left, and the Demigryphs got beat pretty bad, but I rolled double 1s for them to stick. So we go into Empire turn 2, and just as promised, I generated Three steam points, used them all into movement, and slammed into the side of the Pegasus Knights. Knowing that there's some of the softer knights he has, I'm totally expecting to have the, D6 plus 3d3 impact hits just crush the bejesus out of these Pegasi, and then I'll be able to use the steam tank to deal with some of the other threats. Over here, I proved that I still don't understand redirecting, because I end up putting this archer unit in a redirect way against the Knight of the Realms that's going to accomplish nothing. Because he can't make this charge because of the Pegasi or the peasants there, he'll hit me and then I'll form to him and he'll still go straight on the overrun. So I feel really stupid about that. And everything else, I march forward. I do bring the halberdiers a little bit ahead of the two detachments because what I want to do, like I did with the dwarves, is I want him to hit the halberdier unit and for me to countercharge with the two units and like bear trap that unit of knights. Unfortunately, and this is maybe the problem with me putting it on a battle report, my opponent saw the battle report, so he is not terribly interested in letting that happen. So we go into shooting, and the two archer units take off two peasants. But, I did a kind of a huge amount of shooting the first time, so I shouldn't really have expected too much. Nothing else worked. Cannon missed, rocket launcher spread crazy wide, so that was the end of shooting. And here was the biggest piss poor steam tank performance ever. On a D6 plus 3D3, I did 3 or 4 impact hits. So I rolled a 1 on every one of those dice and only managed to wound with 3 of the 4. So I killed one Pegasi, but they're stubborn because they're right there next to the Grail Chapel, so they didn't go anywhere. Over here, Demigryphs end up killing 2 more knights because I'm no longer trying to use them to kill the lords ineffectually. And the Demigryphs take another wound. The heroic killing blow lord is throwing attacks like it's going out of style, but he's only strength 4 against toughness 4, so he needs 4 ups and the 6 to killing blow, and he's just not wounding at all, which is not good for him. So we go to Bretonnia turn 2, and the knights attempt to charge the archers that were in front of them. I fled with them. They attempted to redirect to the other archers. I fled with them, so the knights are stuck where they're at. The peasants attempted to charge my halberdiers and ended up failing their charge by 1. So, that's pretty much it there, because they're not moving. So, I stop his magic phase, and we go into shooting, and he shows me again why I am absolutely scared shitless of Bretonnian trebuchets. He lands one directly on the head of my middle guy in the unit, ends up deleting both the 2 back rows. And this is where I'm kicking myself because I forgot I had the Iron Curse icon there. So I could have saved a few of those, but it was just brutal. On the plus side, nobody failed their panic checks. So we go into combat. Obviously, it's not the steam tank's turn, so I don't do anything to it. And the freaking Pegasi that gets to attack succeeds and inflicts a wound on the steam tank. I'm unbreakable, so I don't really care, but at this point it's just humiliating. I'm having flying ponies beating a tank to death, and it scares me. So we go into combat here. He ends up not... I think he reformed last. And this is actually something I'm not sure about, and anybody who knows Bretonnia, feel free to tell me more. The way I read the Bretonnian Lance rules is that you only count as having ranks of 3 models on the charge. After that, it doesn't count. So if you're standing there slogging it out, you don't get that bonus. So he ended up going like 4 wide so he could get more attacks, which was frankly enough to get the break. I ran. He chose to restrain with his lord and did. He pursued with his knights and failed to catch me. So he ends up in the forest. I think he was going to lose one to dangerous terrain, but ended up ward saving it. So if anybody can tell me if about the Bretonnians and their ranks, that would be great, because I just don't understand it. And I don't know that. I mean, my Bretonnia player knows it better than I do a bit, but we couldn't be sure there. So any comments to that end would be very helpful. So we go into Empire turn 3, and I charge his peasants just because at this point I think I can handle them better than the knights, and I want him to stop hucking rocks at my head. I don't have very much left in that unit at all, and if he lands another one of his laser guided boulders on me, he'll be able to just start picking out characters before too much longer, and I definitely don't want that to happen. So I pretty easily succeeded the charge, slammed into the front of the peasants. Main problem is the peasants are still stubborn because they're a Bretonnia unit right next to this freaking Grail Chapel, and I have no way of getting any other support into that unit. Over here, the my archers failed to rally, so they run. I think it was just another 2 inches, but they're relatively close to that table edge, and I'll be really annoyed if they end up running off just because I used them for a double flip. And over here, the demigryphs that will never die ended up reforming, and that started a whole new stream of profanity from my opponent, which was very amusing. Because it took him so much work to get him to break, and they're, I think, 5 inches from the table edge, and they're just like, nope, not leaving yet. And over here you see I slammed those swordsmen into the front of the Pegasus Knights just because, sad to say, the steam tank's not doing the job, and I need to go ahead and make them dead. And then over here you can see I just tilted the archers a little bit because his lord is out on his own until he charges something, so I figure might as well go ahead and take 10 shots. Maybe I'll get lucky and one of them will land and weaken him a little bit. Then I fire my rocket battery off, get 1 missile, and I aimed it at the knights. I get 1 missile and it comes back right on the head of my spearmen and kills 5 of them. So I was like, that's so awesome, I can barely contain myself. The only good side of that is that they didn't panic, so that makes me happy. So magic was again a waste. So we go into combat, and finally the swordsman and the steam tank manage to do it. We kill 1 more Pegasus, and he ends up rolling very badly on the stubborn leadership check and flees over the building. And since there's no way I could go through the building to follow him, I just turned the swordsman to face the flank of the knights. And over here, I just beat tail on the peasants. I think I killed another 10 of them or so. And they flee. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I pursue. And here's the problem. I'm used to running normal infantry guys in groups in 5 wide. So I wasn't really thinking about it. The halberdier unit I do for extra attacks is 7 wide. So I end up clipping the front end of that knight unit. But the only way that I can actually make the attack, because I'm so close to it, I only get 2 guys touching. So I'm thinking, holy crap, these knights are going to beat the crap out of me. And now I'm going to lose my general and his unit. So I was not feeling... I was kicking myself for having done that pursuit. I should have reformed. And I was pissed off. I thought I was going to lose the general unit and the halberdiers right then and there. So we go into Bretonnia turn 3, and he charges the demigryphs, and they stay, because if they flee, they'll be off the table. And this is where I started second-guessing my whole stance on whether the ranks work out right, whether you're charging or not. So just to give my opponent the benefit of the doubt, I put his dudes back in the lance formation, because he wouldn't have been out of it if I hadn't have been so certain that it didn't matter for ranks after the initial charge. So If anybody could answer that for me, that'd be great. So he charges here. He almost loses another knight to dangerous terrain for the charge, but ends up ward saving it. Now, the one thing I'm liking here is that because his knight unit is totally in that woods and it's a blood forest, there's no way he can use his mages to buff it without setting it off and having the trees beat him to death. So I'm thinking the demigryphs are slowly winning me over. They're not doing a whole lot of damage, but they're taking it like champs. And if I can keep that Knight of the Realm unit tied up a little while more, I'm feeling much more comfortable with what's going on the left-hand side of the board. And here, Lord Cartasia rams into the back of the steam tank, hoping to use his heroic killing blow to take it out of the action. And I'm nervous about that, because really, with the exception of the heroic killing blow, I'm not really afraid of anything he's got for the steam tank. And I really need to get it somewhere to hold down one of these units so I can start picking the army apart so he doesn't just overwhelm me with force. So magic, he ends up getting off one buff spell on his knight unit, but it didn't come to anything. On shooting, his one trebuchet, who has not successfully hurled a rock yet, misfires and blows itself up. Although I'm not entirely sure how you blow yourself up, just with rocks and pulleys, but I guess it collapses in on itself. But more importantly, it's not hucking masonry at me anymore. And here, so what happens here is because I only have two dudes on the side there, I end up making way with my Archlector and with Captain Hosberg, my BSB. They both have like one-up rerollable armor saves, so he doesn't do anything to me. I inflict, I think it's one wound I inflicted, but it was enough that, and he was just out of 6 inches, I think, from the Grail Chapel. He ended up rolling boxcars on it, and he's out of range of both his BSB and his Lord, so he was like boxcars against the 7, he turned and ran. I didn't pursue, or rather I pursued, but I did not catch him. But that doesn't really matter a whole lot because it's my turn next, and I'm going to end up chasing him off the board. So, during combat here, he ends up killing the second to last demigryph. The champion's the only one left. He's got a wound on him, and I break. And he's thinking, I'm 5 inches from the board. I'm going to run off, so he restrained, rather. I end up rolling the flee, and I roll 4. So my demigryph survives at 1 inch from the table, and he turns to face a very, very weak flank over here. I'm really in trouble. Things are starting to unravel quickly, and a whole new Knight of the Realm lance entering into this just means a bad day for the Empire. And here is where, as I promised, I charged and ran the Knights Errant off the board. Looking back on it now, I think this was a mistake. I'm used to Ogre Kingdoms and armies like that, where your units can kind of survive and do their own thing off away from each other. I'm still not used to the interconnectedness of the Empire, so I think I made a mistake moving my General and BSB this far away from where everybody else was, even though it got me the Knights. So then, continuing on with my mistake making, I charge my swordsman into the knight unit here. I really should have probably just parked them like an inch away so they couldn't charge anything else, and just waited for them to to die, basically. But I'm dumb and wanted them to get into a fight. And then I compounded that dumb by moving the Celestial Hurricanum within 6 inches of them. And I chose right behind them because, like I said, I'm dumb. And for some reason I thought putting them in the direct line that the Knights are going to charge was some sort of good idea. And I don't even know why I even moved them up, because it's not like +1 to hit is going to make those swordsmen do any damage to those Knights. Then during normal movement, I moved these spearmen up to block his peasants from coming back in, because they're rallied. The Pegasus is rallied. And none of them can get to my general's unit, but I wanted to not let them get into the backfield and chew things up here. So I had this crazy idea that 10 spearmen would stop any of that from doing from doing what I'm trying to stop them from. So we go into combat. I inflict a wound on the on Lord Cartasia, and he does nothing back to me. So we're in just a crazy pillow fight. In better news, you get to see a nice picture of my altar of Moor, which makes me happy. I'm unreasonably proud of that, and I'm not entirely sure why. I guess it's because it's my first real conversion. So that's that. So here's how this goes. Um, the knights obviously beat the crap out of the swordsmen. The swordsmen flee. They flee through with the width. They flee through both my altar of Moor and the tip edge of the unit with my spellcaster in it. Panics both of them. Keeps running. Panics. Ends up hitting the unit of spearmen that I had positioned. Basically hits the unit of spearmen I positioned and panics them, and they run off in this direction. Okay, clarification to the last. He actually ran down my swordsman. That being destroyed caused the panic and everything else. And the way they were lined up, it sent everything over here. So this is actually the movement on Bretonnia turn. I think we're in 5 now. He ended up using every unit he had to charge the fleeing thing. So this is where everything is. The handgunners panic, so they run through the archers. The only thing not panicked in this shot is that 5-man detachment of archers and the cannon. So everything else is running like crazy, trying to get away because he threw charges from the peasants, the Pegasus, and his knights, just to make them run. And run they do. They're very good at that. That seems to be the primary skill of my Imperial troops at this point. And I'll apologize for this being very confusing, because I got these pictures out of order because it was getting late and I wasn't taking pictures right. So this is a picture that actually I snapped later and I put in here because this is where it makes the most sense. But the steam tank was still there, so imagine a steam tank where it was. And he decides to, during his magic phase, bubble Wissen's Wild Form on the Knights of the Realm and his Lord. Not a terrible idea. Miscasts it and gets the result that makes him do a strength 10 hit to everyone adjacent to the caster. Now, in the Bretonnian Lance, the caster is in the middle of the second row. So she hit everybody in the lance and killed everyone except for the BSB. So that unit has been wiped off the board. But at least Wissen's Wild Form's up, although both me and my opponent agreed totally not worth the sacrifice there. So then we go into Empire turn. This must be turn 5. My archers ended up rallying. So, of course, after the explosion of his Knights of the Realm, the rallying and saving of my level 4 and his little detachment, or his little unit, started a whole new slew of cursing, which was kind of fun. I'm learning new words in addition to getting my tail kicked at Warhammer. And then everything over here, except the only thing that mattered, rallied. My Altar of Moor, Celestial Hurricanum, runs off the board. The handgunners and the spearmen both rally, turn around, and get ready to fight. But I so don't care about anything over here. There's nothing over here that is really going to put a dent in the rest of the game. And, of course, I have to do a reform here and fail my rerollable Leadership 9 Swift Reform check. So all I do is spin around and face the side of those peasants there. And as promised, here's what happened to the steam tank. Sorry to leave you all in such suspense. But I was really doing nothing to the Lord, so I decided to gamble and go for 5 steam points. I figure I'd grind with 3, I'd breath weapon, I'd be able to do enough to hurt him. Now keep in mind, the the steam tank only has like 2 wounds on it by this point. So naturally, of course, I roll a 10 on the artillery die, and it misfires. And I roll max on the D3, so it blows up, kills itself, and does not even have the decency to wound any of the characters that are clustered so tightly around it. But yeah, there's 350 points that did exactly nothing all game because, as you can see, the Pegasus Knights are still alive. So that was the end of my turn. Going into Bretonnia turn 5. The Bretonnian Lord charges my archers, and I can't flee with them because I'm so close to the edge of the board they'll run off anyway. They're pretty much screwed at this point, but at least I'm keeping them tied up, maybe-ish? I don't know. I think it was take my chances that he'll fluff in combat or run off the board with certainty, so that's pretty much it. The Pegasus Knight tries to charge at the Spearman and fails. The peasants don't do anything, I don't think. Okay, and I remember now what happened. The Bretonnians attempt to hurl a rock on my halberdiers. They're right there. It ends up drifting enough to land on the peasants instead. Destroys half the peasants and they start to flee. And of course, they flee from the closest enemy unit, which is my halberdiers, which sends them right back towards the center of the board as opposed to any direction that would take them off and therefore be useful. So, start of Empire, and this is turn 6, although I realize now we ended up going for like 8 turns because I think we lost count. But I end up charging the peasants. They fled, so I redirected to the Pegasus Knight. They fled. And then I charged into his BSB here. Oh, and I charged... Yeah, like I charged with one of those small units to the side that was doing nothing. And so after my charges, because the Pegasus Knight just kept kind of getting bounced all around, he ended up right in front of my halberdiers. Still fleeing, but there's not a point I could make useful to him. So he split up the BSB and his lady last turn, I guess. So that's what you see here. And then during shooting, my cannon tries to take out the Pegasus Knight, ends up misfiring and blowing itself to smithereens, which causes the archers to panic and run for the board edge again, and they stop where you see them there. And in close combat, the Demigriff Knight does not take any wounds, but actually manages to inflict 1 on his BSB. So I'm very, very close to being able to kill it, but still oh so far. Excuse me. But still oh so far away. He's got a 1-up rerollable, so it's very difficult to actually get anything to stick on this guy, and he's got his ass up against that Grail Chapel, so he's stubborn. So during Bretonnian turn 6, I guess I forgot to take a picture, but yeah, the Bretonnians and Knight ended up destroying my archer detachment with my level 4 last turn, ran him off the board. So, Bretonnia turn 6, he charges his heroic killing blow lord into the ass of the Demigriff, who is just waiting to be chopped into tiny bits. He ends up rallying the Pegasus Knight, and ends up rallying the peasants as well, but since he knows I'm going to charge him again, he didn't even bother turning them around, because he knows he's just going to choose to flee again. And this just shows where they've ended up, still facing the opposite direction. Or maybe this is... They might not have rallied. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to catch him for the rest of the game, and he's just going to keep running. And theoretically, this should have been the end of the game anyway, but we had lost count, so I know we play at least one more turn here. So we go into combat, and the Lord Cartagia finally remembers that he has Killing Blow and uses it to great effect against the Demigriff. So we go to Empire turn 7, and I don't know why I didn't take any picture of the charge, but I charged those 10 spearmen into the flank of his BSB, hoping that I would kill it. And then I moved up my general's unit so he's within 3 of that detachment so he can give them hatred and those benefits. So we go into shooting, and my rocket blaster blows itself up. During magic, and again, I don't know why these are so out of order. During magic, oh, I know why, because I forgot my magic phase and my opponent let me go back and do it. Felix gets speed of light on the himself and the detachment, whatever. But he miscasts, kills 3 more halberdiers and himself. So that's like 200 some odd points that going that extra turn gave my opponent, which probably pushed. Well, I don't want to give it away, but I'm giving up points left, right, down the center for a turn that I should not even have taken. And I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the large purple and gold banner the halberdiers are holding. My wife actually freehanded the symbol on that. It's actually the Manticore from Ostermark, which is the province where this particular unit comes from. So after combat here, the BSB does only 1 wound to me. I do nothing to him, but I end up having a good enough leadership with my leadership 9 rerollable or whatever it was that they stuck it out. So he's going to have to fight me another turn because we still don't realize the game should have ended half a turn ago. So Bretonnia turn 7. He has his Lady Damsel move around here, I guess, to throw some magic. I don't even remember him trying to cast anything, but that's where she ended. And his peasants snuck around the building to here, so I couldn't see him anymore. And then during combat here, the BSB gets a couple more wounds on the spearmen, but it's not enough to break them, and that's where the game ends. And so this is what the board looks like at the end of the game while we're counting up points. Cartagia continued to fly over the battlefield on his Bretonnian Pegasus Cloud Dancer. He watched as the remaining Empire troops fled the battlefield. Those men who he had once called brothers now seemed to be his sworn enemy. The bittersweet victory did nothing to calm his obsession of finding his wife and daughter, still held prisoner by the Blood God's minions. He landed outside the staging area as those the Bretonnians called the Lowborn were busy taking apart the one remaining trebuchet. As he walked past those peasants, they just stopped and bowed their heads at his passing. This was a strange experience for him, as he was used to command, but not this type of submissive leadership. He approached the tent of the prophetess Aveline and was announced by one of the 2 knights guarding the front of the tent. Lord Cartagia, the lady has blessed you today. Lord Alphonius's belief in your leadership skills proved to be correct. Thank you, prophetess, Cartagia grunted, still not used to the reverence the others placed on her. I believe now those who rescued me can join our contingent and we can begin the search for my wife and daughter. I await final word from our Supreme Lord and blessings of the lady, but if they show the same bravery and leadership as you, I see no reason not to make them full knights of our realm. Good. I shall begin preparations for our next excursion into the Blood God's claimed lands. Wait, Lord Cartagia, Aveline interrupted, causing a stern look from Cartagia, who was not used to being stopped in mid-order. Lord Alphonius is returning to the mines and may require our forces to continue the search for the pearl. Once the messenger arrives, I will know. I sympathize with your quest, and I am ready to support you, but our search for the pearl is our priority. I hope you understand this. Cartagia winced a bit as he stared at the wizardess, clearing his throat. I understand the situation, and I've sworn my allegiance to Alphonius and your cause. I await your word, then. With that, Cartasia bowed and began to exit the tent. Cartasia, the lady has blessed you and accepted you into her protection. She also protects those whom we love and honor. Fear not. The lady will see to it that you see your family again. Cartasia actually smiled a bit as he continued out of the tent. As he made his way to the stables, he saw a figure swoop over the camp on a beautiful white and brown Pegasus. The figure landed and quickly dismounted and made their way into the tent to which he had just come. The messenger for Alphonius had arrived. Alright, so we had a pretty significant victory for Bretonnia, and Cartasia has, at least for the moment, escaped the grasp of Archlector von Grunberg. So, as far as wrap-up in general, I felt like very much like a noob during this game. The Empire is very different from any of the other armies I play, and I definitely just don't have the synergy down yet. I made some dumb mistakes. I separated out my general and his unit way far away from where everybody else was. And I think it's going to take a little while to get a hold of how to build an Empire list, how to use all the support together, particularly comparing it to like Ogre's. Ogre's core is awesome. It can do just about anything I need him to do. The Empire core just seems so fragile by comparison. And I'm going to have to look more into some other sections of their army, or to do better at using the different parts of the game together to make the army stronger. I think a big area I need to get stronger with is my magic. I really was just kind of six-dicing individual spells and not really trying to use the warrior priest stuff to bleed out some dispel dice, stuff like that. I just need practice with. And I think before I play the Empire again, I'm going to sit down and first of all finish painting some more stuff, because I've got a lot from the old Empire player who gave me it all, and I just need to get it kind of painted up to my standard and get it ready for the field. And what I want to do fluff-wise is I eventually want to have one unit from each of the provinces. I do have the heraldry book that GW released, so I'm using that to plan out my army and to actually make sure the colors are all right and all the images on the flags are correct for each individual unit. I'm also going to be doing some little detachments and stuff representative of the different faiths. Like I have my Altar of More, which is the Celestial Huracanum. I also have a unit of swordsmen that are going to be swordsmen of More, who are actually converted Bretonnian, like old school Bretonnian archers with their hands up. I cut the bows off and turn the bows into sickles, so they're wielding like swords in one hand, sickles in the other. Should be pretty cool. Now, all this work I'm putting in, will it make me better at the army? Probably not. I'm going to have to really focus on kind of learning how they play and deciding on what lores I like. I think Life and Light are good lores. They've got some great buffs to them. Life may be a little more defensive than I want. I might think about going Shadow and having somebody who's a little bit more nerfy to my enemies and some buffs, that sort of thing. But I'm still very early in the discovering the Empire stage of my relationship with this army, so I'm definitely going to try that. If you guys have any suggestions, please help a brother out. I feel like I'm going to need all the help I can get with the Empire. We haven't really had a successful Empire player in the group yet. I mean, the last one obviously didn't feel like he was successful. He sold him to me. And I'd like to be able to make something out of him. So any advice you can give will be well appreciated. So that's it for this one. This is number 31, I think. So I've been doing a lot of these, and you guys apparently like them. So if this is your first one, please like, subscribe to the video. I'll keep doing these as long as there's not somebody chasing me off of YouTube with lighted torches and pitchforks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will catch you next time.